Welcome back to Robert's Reviews. Today we are going to be doing the sequel to what I did last Friday, which is Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy was released in 2010. It was written by Edward Kitsis and Adam Horowitz and directed by Joseph Kosinski. This film was the biggest disappointment of my life. And I've had a lot of disappointments in my life. Trust me. I had a few issues with this movie. I'm very excited to talk about it. I need to talk about it with somebody because I'm going to freak out if I don't get to. Alright. So essentially this film is the fact that Jeff Bridges' character, Kevin Flynn, has a son. And then shortly thereafter, after the son grows up a little bit, Jeff Bridges accidentally gets sucked back into the Tron world where he creates Clue, who is supposed to be this guy that's supposed to create a perfect system. That way he can spend his time at home with his kid and not have to be there all the time. But Clue is a bad guy because Clue is like, I need to create the perfect thing. In order to create the perfect platform, we have to get rid of all the users, which includes Kevin Flynn. So when Kevin Flynn comes back, they abduct him and they're like, you can never leave. And then he never leaves. And the kid grows older and becomes like a teenager and then a young adult. And then he gets a pager from Clue, who he thinks is Kevin, his dad. But it's not, it's from Clue. And so he goes and he finds his dad's secret office and then gets sucked into the world of Tron as well, which they are calling the grid in this movie. And essentially, he, with the help of Quora, who is a female, basically like man-made character, but it's not a program, they look for his dad, and then they try to get out of there. This movie was one of the biggest disappointments in my life, and I mean that with all of my heart. I know people are going to be like, oh, but this movie's great. It's not. Okay, I'm sorry. You're wrong. It's not. Here's why. I watched the first Tron a week ago, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I honestly did not expect to enjoy that movie at all. I was like, this is not my kind of movie. And then I watched it. I was like, this movie's fantastic. I'm so happy I watched it. So I was so excited to watch Tron Legacy, the sequel. I was like, yes, it's been 30 years since it came out, since in between the two release dates, and I got to watch a week later, and I was so excited. I was like, yes, yes. And it's 2 hours long, and I'm like, yes, Scooby got a little bit longer, because the first one was a little short, which is weird for me, because normally I have a problem with that, but I didn't this time. I was like, I want it to be longer. I was wrong. I want it to be shorter. I want it to not exist. Here's why. I was so distracted by the bad CGI that I'm going to talk about later that it was unreal. I am so excited to tell you about how bad it is. I'll talk about that later. But the main issue was I didn't really understand why this was created in the first place. I understand it was a cult hit and like it was like fantastic and all, but like I don't ask for a Pulp Fiction 2. I don't ask for a Breakfast Club 2. Because they're timeless classics, right? They don't need to be remade. They don't need a sequel. They don't need any of that because it just lives as it is, as a living, breathing, like growing organism of a fan base. And Disney has a problem with sequels where like, oh, they like it, we need to make more. And it's like, no, you don't. That's the issue, right? Like if I have pumpkin pie, right, and I have a sliced pumpkin pie, and it's the best pumpkin pie in the world, right? Then I'm gonna be like, okay, I would like a second one. And then I eat a second one, and I'm like, oh, that was too much pie. And then you feel bad afterwards, right? That was exactly what this movie is. This movie is a whole pumpkin pie that I ate all by myself. I wanted a sequel. I was wrong. I did not want a sequel. I realized it too late after I'd already started watching it. That's a big problem with Disney in general, but also just this entire franchise is bad now. I love the first Tron. I'll probably watch it again at some point. It's so good. I can almost guarantee you I'm never watching Tron Legacy again, ever. I hated it that much. I really, really did not enjoy it, and here's why. The main reason was because it didn't need to exist. And the second reason is that the plot is just so weird, right? It's like that weird, like, dad saves dad, son saves dad thing. I'm going to spoil it a little bit because this movie's bad, and you probably have already seen it anyway. Then the dad dies in the end of the movie. Why? I'll never know. There's no reason he needed to die at all. Literally at all. He could have just killed him right then and there. He could have just been like, huh, and thrown his disc and like literally would have just killed him. But instead he was like, no, you go, son. I'm Jeff Bridges. Whatever. I didn't need it. I really didn't need it. It made me upset. I really did not need that entire sequence. They both could have lived and made it better, and then they were like, oh, maybe we'll make a third one. And talks about it in the third one for 10 years, and we haven't even heard anything about a third one yet. I don't want a third one anymore. I thought I did. I was wrong. I don't want a third one. Don't make a third one. Please, Disney, for the love of God, don't make a third one. Let's talk about acting first, and then we'll get into the special effects that I thought were just literally awful. First, Jeff Bridges as Kevin Flynn / Clue. So, Kevin Flynn was great. I really enjoyed his character. I think that maybe his character was written a little poorly because there's no way that Kevin Flynn would have not been the same kind of enthusiastic, fun-loving guy he was in the first one, right? In this one, he's more like upset about everything. He's easily upset and easily angered, and I feel like that's just wrong. There's no way that that would have been how it actually would have worked, right? Like, it's just not, like, the character's a character. You can change a character, but you can't change his innate feelings and abilities. That just changes the entire character for me, right? Like, Kevin Flynn was great in the first one. This is not Kevin Flynn. This is not the same character. I promise you it's not the same character. They are very different, and I did not enjoy the fact that they had to include him in the movie. Maybe a movie about a different, somebody else getting sucked into the thing that wasn't a part of the Tron universe, like they accidentally found it, that'd be great. Similar to the first movie. But at least you know what's going on in the sequel instead of the first one where you didn't know what was going to happen. And he played Clue as well, and Clue is an entirely CGI character based on the facial reconstruction of the younger version of Jeff Bridges, which I will get into later because it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Garrett Hedlund as Sam Flynn. I actually enjoyed Sam Flynn's character. Didn't hate it. I liked it. I didn't hate him at all. I enjoyed that he existed. I just don't understand why he had to be so naive and go into the place. I guess in real life I would have gone in there, but then he pretends like he doesn't really know what's going on, and I'm like, you totally know what's going on. Just, like, be a guy and leave. And, like, it's just, the characters don't make sense in relation to each other. Like, when Sam gets there, he should have been able to talk his dad into leaving way sooner than it happened. Right? Like, I understand his dad doesn't want to leave, but also, like, what bad could happen if Clue got onto the real world? And if it did, you could stop it. Like, that's what the police is for, that's what the military is for, they could have stopped it. There's a lot of things that could have happened that they just didn't do, and I don't understand why. Olivia Wilde as Cora, probably my favorite character in the entire movie. She was just laid back and, like, cool, calm, collected, and badass. And, like, she did a really good job portraying it, and I had a lot of fun watching it. I don't think that it was necessarily important for her to be there, but it gave a little bit more importance to Kevin Flynn in general. And I think for a lot of it, I feel like we could have seen more of the negative influences of her and Clue, because we could have seen some interesting stuff like background stuff. Like, say they ran into each other before and they got upset. But instead they just kind of pretend they didn't know each other for the entire film, and that's just a bad character choice, in my opinion. That's all the acting. Let's talk about the CGI characters. So I'm not going to show it because it doesn't look good unless he's moving. If you just take a picture of it, it looks fine. But when you watch him and he's moving, it looks just like a PlayStation 1 graphic. It just looks so bad. Like, that's not how a face moves, right? Like, when I smile, I don't go, right? That looks dumb, right? Because when I smile, my eyes crinkle up, right? They forgot to add cheek muscles entirely, so it's just like this entire top half doesn't move while this is like, right? That looks dumb. It looks dumb. Like, when if you're gonna use CGI, you need to understand that your entire face moves when you talk. Like, my eyebrows move, like, it all does. And they did not realize that, or they just did a really bad job with it. What blows my mind about this movie is that this movie came out a year after Avatar came out. And Avatar is extraordinary, right? Like, it's not fair that we have Avatar and then we follow it up with Tron Legacy. Come on, people. Awful. The lights and the suits, I'm pretty sure were practical. They look practical, which, good for them. That means they have less to do in post-production. Although I heard post-production took, like, weeks, like 63 weeks, something like that. And that's ridiculous, for one. I don't even think they spent that much time on, like, Endgame. But I'm so mad. I hated the CGI almost the entire time. Anytime Clue was on screen, I was immediately distracted by how bad and how, like, just awful it is. It does not look good. Okay, it does not look good at all. It's bad. That's all I have for this. I'm going to give this review, this movie, a D because it did not need to exist. And the fact that it exists kind of upsets me because it's so good. The first one's so good. And this one's just a complete disappointment, in my opinion. I know other people have different opinions. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. That's totally fine. You can talk in the comments below. Drop a comment about what you thought about the movie, if you thought it was good, bad. Post on Facebook on my Robert's Reviews page. We can have a conversation about it. I'm not a mean guy to debate with. I love debating. And we can talk about, if you really enjoy this film, tell me why. Tell me what you think is really good. And then we can have a little talk about what we thought about it. It'd be really cool. I think that's all I have for you guys. Make sure you tune in next week starting. We have a review coming out tomorrow. And then after that we have the weekend to chill off a little bit. And then we have 2 weeks full of Christmas reviews. So I hope to see you guys there. All right, cool. That's all I have for you guys today. Always remember to just keep watching movies and films and stay educated. And I'll see you guys in the next video.